Hello, and welcome back to another week of animal science virtually. We will be continuing our swine industry unit, and today we'll be focusing on industry concerns. If you have not already got your guided notes out and ready, I would recommend you do that before finishing out the lecture. We will be covering 4 main topics today that don't really fit into any other categories, so I decided to just group them all in industry concerns. So we have 4 main topics that we'll be covering today. The effect on the environment. So what effect does the swine industry have on the environment? We're going to talk about that. Then the safety of our report and the product that we're producing to our consumers, and then animal welfare and animal rights. So our goal today is to learn about these topics, and then I want you to know how to be able to address consumer concerns if you're ever in this situation that you need to do that. So our first one that we will cover is the effect on the environment. So as many of us can imagine, swine industries do produce an odor, and so odor emission can be an issue in some communities, as well as pollution of groundwater and waterways from untreated waste and leaking storage facilities. So if swine producers are not taking care of their storage facilities and these are leaking and wreaking havoc on local water sources and groundwater, that can definitely be an issue. So both odor emission and pollution of water connect to how manure is managed on a swine farm. So we are going to talk about manure management on the next few slides, and manure management breaks down into 3 key points that we will cover. So our first of manure management, our first key point is storage. So we have 2 ways that we can store manure from our swine barns. Our first is a lagoon, and lagoons are very similar to a pond. They are designed to catch runoff from outside animal lots or to hold waste from that comes out of the buildings. So that's connected with pipes. Usually in swine farms, we will see all of our animals inside in barns. So often lagoons in swine farms are connected through pipes. We don't really have outside animal lots. They store waste while the solids are broken down by bacteria into liquid and gases. So you can see here that our waste comes from our barn and then goes into our lagoons. And this picture happens to have 3 of them. Usually 1 lagoon is suffice. It just depends on the size of the production. But the waste will leave these barns and be piped into these lagoons here. And then once they're in the lagoon, you can see that they have these little things here that kind of circulate it around. And those are used to help the solid waste then be broken down into liquid and gases. And so we're often adding in bacteria by doing that. Also, some of these lagoons have to be they have to require a liner in some soils. So we have to make sure that we're preventing leaking at all costs. And sometimes soils are more prone to leakage than others. So depending on where you live in the country and what kind of soil you have can determine if you need a liner in your lagoon or not. These things must be approved by the Department of Natural Resources before construction. So it's important if you're a swine producer to connect with your Department of Natural Resources, and then they will tell you whether or not your soil is good enough or if you need a liner. Our second way that we are able to then store that manure is in a pit. And so we often see concrete pits underneath the flooring of the buildings. These are about 2 to 8 feet deep, and they are directly below the confinement of the pigs. So our pigs would be living right in here on these floors here, and you can see that those floors are then slotted, so they have holes in them. And that allows our waste to then drop down into our storage pits. So you can see here we have our liquid waste. They capture both liquid and solid waste that can fit through the slots. Then they conserve nutrients during the storage, and they also must be sealed. So this is concrete in the ground. Sometimes, depending on the size of the operation, these pits are then pumped out and sent to lagoons, or sometimes they're just the manure is taken there for fertilizer. So like I just mentioned, we are using this manure for fertilizer. So it's not just going to waste usually. We applied this to the land in two different ways. First being irrigation. So irrigation involves pumping the liquid waste through sprinklers on the top of the ground. So if you can imagine, we see often large sprinklers in fields pumping water. And it's the same thing, same equipment, just pumping out waste in this case to use as fertilizer. So these have to be monitored pretty consistently to ensure that waste is not leaking from that equipment or causing runoff where it should not be. This is usually done in the spring and the summer. So this is a pretty fast way to do that. Like we just pump that manure right into those sprinklers and it shoots it out onto the field. So not very much labor and pretty easy. Our second option is to inject it. And so injection is a mechanical procedure where we actually put it under the surface of the soil. So this often can be called knifing as well. So we're directly putting that waste into the soil. So this takes a tractor and equipment to then put that waste right under the soil. This allows the nutrients to be used more effectively by plants because it's already injected into the soil and not sitting on top of the soil where it has to absorb. This does reduce odor and runoff because it's sent right into the soil, but it is more time consuming and labor intensive. As you can imagine, in irrigation, we're just spraying that out across the field. That's probably not going to smell very good. In injection, it goes right into the soil and we don't have to worry so much about the smell. But we do need somebody to drive the tractor and make sure that the field is covered, so that will take some more time and is a little bit more labor intensive. And finally, it's important that we are using manure when we need it and where we need it. So nutrient balance is our third key point, and this often involves testing for nutrients in the soil as well as in the waste. So we don't want to sell manure just to farmers that don't, well, and farmers won't purchase it from you if they don't need the fertilizer. So we have to test the waste to see what kind of nutrients it can provide to the soil. And people have jobs that test soil and recommend what kind of nutrients are needed. So then producers are able to talk to them and see what kind of nutrient the waste might contain, and then they can gauge how much liquid they need to apply. So our next industry concern is the safety of our pork. So we see lots of labeling where packages say no antibiotics added or organic or things like that. And we have a pork quality assurance program in the pork industry that is extremely similar to beef quality assurance, which you guys completed earlier in the semester. And this program is designed to expose producers to proper production practices to not only help them improve their operation and management and reduce their cost, but also ensure that they are using drugs properly and are learning about food safety issues. So some of the things during these trainings can be learning about withdrawal periods and what kind of medicines are legal to use and how they're legal to use them, as well as how we should be giving injections if that's needed, and stress in pigs and things like that. So lots of things are covered in pork quality assurance to ensure the proper care of our animals and to ensure a quality product. Pork quality assurance allows our producers to develop a HACCP program, and that is a Hazard Analysis Critical Control Points program. And we help them in pork quality assurance. We help them create a plan for their individual farms to identify potential problems that they may be having in their production right now, and how those could reduce the total quality of pork. We want our producers to be educated so that they are able to produce a quality product as well as be safe while doing that and reduce their cost. And finally, we will be talking about animal welfare and animal rights. I know that you guys have spent time talking about this before, so I just wanted to do a quick review of it. Animal welfare is just calling for the humane use of animals. So animal welfare activists believe that the use of animals brings a responsibility to provide appropriate care to our animals. So if you're going to have animals, just take care of them is basically what they want. Most people that are involved in raising animals for food are very careful with their welfare. They are concerned to raise their animals safely and carefully as well, because if they don't, that can affect the animal's growth and production rates, and then ultimately influence the profits of the producer. So if they're in it for the right reasons, they're going to be treating their animals properly. And then on the other side, we have animal rights. And this is different because animal rights activists believe that animals should not be used as resources by humans at all. So we shouldn't eat animals is basically what they believe. And they believe that animals should have the same rights as humans. So just a quick refresher there on animal welfare versus animal rights. So that wraps up our lecture for today, but I wanted to talk really quick about some of our assignment details to maybe clarify some questions that we had this week. So we have 2 things to do this week. You will watch the lecture and hopefully you took your guided notes. Those will help you in the quiz, and you can use your notes while taking the quiz. That's totally okay. Before taking the quiz though, I would like you to complete the HACCP worksheet. So I covered it a little bit, but HACCP is a very important thing that has 7 steps to it. And so in our HACCP worksheet, you will be doing some research over what it is, and I want you to identify the 7 different steps. So you'll write in this box step 1 through 7, and then I want you to identify the action so usually those steps have a name, and then what do producers do in order to achieve that action. So we need a name in this box, and we need 2 things in this box. What are they doing and how do they do it? There are lots of good resources out there to research HACCP, and if you have any questions, just email me and I can assist you in that. So once you've completed the HACCP worksheet, that is uploaded to Schoology. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Once you have completed that HACCP worksheet and this lecture with notes, you may take your Google quiz, and that is on Google Forms again. So your Google form only needs to be submitted through Google Forms. I go in and manually grade them and then record your grades into Schoology and Skyward. So you just take the quiz, it tells me that you took it and your answers. If it marks it wrong, and for some reason you don't think it should be wrong, then it probably is right, and I just have to look at it. And so then I adjust your scores to what you actually answered. The HACCP worksheet needs to be uploaded to Schoology once you're done. It is worth 21 points. And our Google form quiz is worth 15 points. So 21 points on our HACCP worksheet and 15 points on our Google quiz. So make sure that you are getting those things done. As always, you can email me with questions, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks, and have a great week.